Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto x Loona x Octavia x Millie? The movie. Huge shout out to the Champ 123 for this story. If you want more awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. The sunset was so beautiful, bathing the sky in tender orange, giving off a feeling of warmth and content. It was soothing to have such a view. In his final moments, he was so tired. In a way, he was glad it was all coming to an end. Yes, it was true. The great hero of the Fourth Shinobi War, the hero who fought a goddess and conquered, the hero who had an apocalyptic battle for his best friend's soul and won. Naruto Uzumaki was about to die, an unfortunate side effect of fighting Kaguya. A petty woman even in defeat, having infected Naruto chakra, his very soul, cursing him to only live for another year. It was heartbreaking to all when they found out. Across the world, the best of the best tried their hand of saving their hero, hoping to repay an unpayable debt, but it was all for naught. No one could help him. The world mourned that their hero was to die. Naruto somehow found a bright side in all this. For the first time since the foundation of Hagoromo's Nishu, true peace was finally possible. Every nation is finally working together, not against. Helping one another. His master's dream, his father's dream, and finally his dream was coming true. If he had to go for it to happen, then so be it. One of his regrets was Kurama dying alongside him. The giant orange grump growled inside his head, chiding him for his foolish thoughts. He couldn't help but laugh. Even now that old fox was still looking out for him. Kurama wasn't the only one. All his friends were struggling. The look of utter defeat in Sakura and Tsunade's eyes when they realized they couldn't save him. It was easy for Naruto to accept, but everyone else? It took a while, but eventually they focused on making happy memories, rather than wallowing in despair. The cherry on top? Naruto achieved his childhood dream of becoming Hokage. The celebrations were crazy. It felt like he partied for a week straight. Then things settled and he spent his remaining time left just enjoying life. Now here he was, sitting on the stone head of his father, enjoying his final moments in silence. Or so he thought. The sound of sandals hitting hard stone made the sick blonde's ear twitch. Slowly he looked over his shoulder. What he saw caused the dying youth to lose his voice momentarily, eyes watering at the sight of his old father figure. Pervy sage? It was true, Jiraiya the gallant was here in the flesh, giving a sad smile to his godson. Hey kid, Naruto had a million thoughts running through his head and not enough time to process them. Stuck staring in disbelief at the sight of his old sensei. Hey, are you real? Nearly bursting into tears at Jiraiya's nod, he hunched forward, shouldering shaking as his godfather took a seat beside him, freezing when he felt a familiar clasp on his shoulders. I'm so proud of you. Naruto whipped his eyes with his sleeve. Hearing those words struck him deep and filled him with such joy that he couldn't help but give his signature foxy grin. The two shared a joyful moment together, the first one they've had in years. Master and student spent the next hour or so catching up, as dawn was quickly turning to night. Finally the war hero's curiosity got the better of him, and he asked what's been on his mind ever since he saw his godfather again. Why was he here? Jiraiya sighed in sadness, eyes glistening as he turned to face his protege. I've come to see you off, kid. Be here in your final moments. The big man upstairs believed you deserved that much at the very least. I'm surprised you didn't stop at the bathhouse on your way here, Naruto joked as he nudged his godfather. Who says I didn't? It was quiet as the two stared at one another, till Naruto broke the silence, bursting into hysterical laughter, barely managing to wipe away a stray tear. You haven't changed at all, pervy sage, Jiraiya chuckled, scratching his long mane of spiky white hair. It was quiet once more. The duo sat in a comfortable silence, hoping to enjoy the moment for just a little bit longer. However, Naruto had to break it, needing to ask a desperate question he's had ever since he found out that he wasn't long for this world. Pervy sage, does it hurt to die? Jiraiya shifted from emotion to emotion as he struggled to figure out the right thing to say to his godson. It was comforting to hear that. Naruto closed his eyes in acceptance while also releasing a shaky sigh. With his remaining strength, he took one last look at his home and the people he loved. I think I'm ready. Just like that, the sun finally set. It was around 6 in the afternoon, on the 10th of October, that the world lost a hero. Naruto Uzumaki had died. Naruto Uzumaki was confused, looking around wildly in this strange white plain. It was odd yet beautiful. Looking down at himself, He was surprised to see his usual clothes replaced by white and gray. Something that looked odd on someone like Naruto. Hey brat, whirling around, the whiskered blonde saw the gigantic fox that had been living in his stomach for 17 years now free. Naruto, looking much healthier than he was before he died, yelled out excitedly, running towards his giant fuzzy friend with a grin. Oh, Kurama. While happy to see his partner, it was clear the giant-tailed beast was in somber spirits. The whiskered blonde instantly noticed. Naruto was only a couple feet away, yet his voice carried, showing his concern as he called to the behemoth, "Hey Kurama, are you okay?" The giant beast sighed as he leaned his head down, so he was face to face with the only mortal he respected as much as he did his father. Naruto, I. Kurama closed his eyes in frustration, or so he told himself, as he knew he wouldn't be able to say this to the blonde. This is goodbye. What do you mean this is goodbye, Kurama? Naruto yelled, confused. It took a moment for the QB's words to register. Devastated wasn't even close to describing how he felt. Taken away from his friends in the elemental nations, and now he was gonna lose the only one he had left. I'm not going to the same place you're going. You're a good man, done good things, but me? The ex-ninja of Konoha seemed to finally understand what his giant fox's friend was saying. Why, yeah, you made mistakes, but you helped save the world. You changed. Kurama sighed in frustration. Why did he have to make things so difficult? It doesn't work that way. Naruto grit his teeth. In his mind, this wasn't fair. Kurama didn't deserve this. This isn't right. I'm not letting you go to whatever bad place they're gonna send you. I don't care whose ass I gotta kick. The QB couldn't help but chuckle at the blonde teen deceleration. Oh dear, did I show up at a bad time? The two were surprised at the sight of a woman. A rather beautiful woman at that. Golden hair that looked finer than silk, creamy white skin that looked like it was bathed constantly in milk. Eyes that shone, sort of like stars. Ah, who are you? Naruto asked as he eyed the stranger wearily, making sure to stay close to Kurama. Well, I'm the one who is meant to lead you to where you need to go. I thought it was only right to give you a moment with your giant friend here, she explained with a kind smile, causing a sort of ethereal glow to surround her. However, our favorite blonde wasn't deceived. Sapphire eyes narrowed dangerously. Look, I'm not going anywhere without Kurama. Naruto growled out, making the angelic woman sigh in sadness. Slowly she walked forward, cupping the blonde's whiskered cheek. The war hero couldn't do much but relax into her tender touch. Please, Naruto. I know this is rather hard for you, but I'm afraid this is how it must be. Kurama has done a lot of bad things. Willingly or unwillingly. Your friend has already accepted his fate. Please, we must move along. There are many people who are waiting to see you. Breaking out of her hold, the whiskered blonde whirled around to face his partner with a glare. Red slitted eyes softened at the sight of his heartbroken comrade. Crouching so he was eye level, Kurama managed to force his black lips into a smile. Naruto, it's okay. I've accepted my fate, and so should you. Kurama, no, I won't. Naruto choked out, struggling not to tear up. Refusing to meet the giant beast's gaze. You stubborn fool. Don't you understand? There's nothing you can do. This is the way things are. Kurama unintentionally released his chakra. The small world they occupied shook from his rage. However, this had little effect on his partner. Shut up, Kurama. I won't let it end this way. The orange behemoth blinked owlishly, taken aback by the blonde's aggression. Naruto turned back to the angelic woman, eyes pleading for an answer. For help of any kind, is there any way I can stop this? So Kurama doesn't have to go. I suppose you could take his place, but in doing so you would be giving up much. Paradise, all the people you've lost, to meet your mother and father again. I'll do it without a single moment of hesitation, he agreed, surprising everyone but the blonde himself. What? I said I'll do it. Kurama, it's okay. That's all it took to silence the raging fox. The look in his partner's eyes spoke a million words. With great reluctance, Kurama looked away, growling in frustration, but that wasn't to say he was angry at Naruto, but more or less angry at the situation. A serene smile graced the angel's beautiful pink lips. Her eyes that looked like mintier stars twinkled with fondness. I suppose it wouldn't be fair to send off the child of prophecy without a few gifts. Gifts? Naruto asked, tilting his head as he scratched a whiskered cheek in confusion. She held up 3 slim fingers, wiggling them with a giggle. That's right. 3 gifts. All right, for my first gift, I want Kurama to return to the land of the living. Kurama's red-slitted eyes once again widened. Having accepted he was going to die to have this new gift of life, to be free. Naruto, You've spent so long trapped and caged away, it's only fair that you get to live free with everyone. I didn't want you to come here with me anyway. The hero of the 4th Shinobi War words touched the QB deeply. Even the winged beauty couldn't help but be touched by Naruto's selfless wish. Your second gift? For my second gift, wherever I'm going I don't want to change. I want to stay as Naruto Uzumaki. A familiar vulpine-like grin stretched across his lips. Giggling into her hand, the supernatural beauty gave a breathtaking smile. I suppose we can manage that. Your last gift? Give him my chakra, eh? Kurama, you don't know what kind of monsters linger wherever you're going, and I refuse to let my partner go in blind without any advantages. My power will come back eventually. Tears started to cloud sapphire blue eyes. His selfish desire to take back his wish and keep his partner by his side, stifled by his desire to let his friend live. Kurama held out his fist, smiling down sadly at the only human he cared and respected as much as his father. The whiskered blonde tried to wipe away the tears, but he couldn't. Shakily he reached out and bumped Kurama's large fist with his own. Naruto grit his teeth as his other half was surrounded by golden smoke, rubbing away his tears with the back of his arm. He pushed through all the pain and heartache. Looking up at his giant friend, he roared out, "Oi, Kurama! Look after everyone for me and tell them I'll miss them all." "I will. Farewell, Naruto," Kurama promised. In a blink of an eye he was gone, leaving the whiskered blonde alone with the angel. "You're a good man, Mr. Uzumaki." "Hey, I guess. So what do I do now?" Naruto asked with a frown, nervously running his hand through his silky golden locks. Her eyes twinkled with delight as she pointed in the direction for the hero to go. "Just keep walking forward, Mr. Uzumaki, and have a good afterlife." "Thanks." Naruto took a deep breath before exhaling with a smile. It was time for him to move on. With a final grin he started to walk, which quickly turned into him running. His form steadily grew dimmer and dimmer until the only occupant of this strange place was the heavenly being. It was a strange feeling, seeing one of the purest men ever to ever grace the world, walking away and eventually disappearing into a place he doesn't belong, made the woman sigh sadly as she too disappeared while mentally preparing herself to explain to a bunch of loved ones why they would never see their son/friend/godson anytime soon. Line break. Naruto awoke to his rebirth surrounded by fire. He felt sinful yet warm flames crawling over his entire form, burning the gray clothes that covered him to ash. The whisker blonde felt a brief yet steadily growing pain stemming from his head. Unknown to him, he was steadily changing from human to demon. Gentle sapphires started changing to a permanent crimson as he was surrounded by a cocoon that was an inferno mixed with an eerie black energy that looked like it was alive and constantly moving. Naruto felt like he was in a dream, soaring through hell's skies like a shooting star, breaching through every realm until he finally stopped on the 5th circle of hell. Wrath. Boom! The ground cratered as the once human, now demon touched the ground in a grand explosion, his smoking form shivering as he pulled himself up from his harsh landing. The whiskered blonde could honestly say this wasn't what he was expecting. It was a bizarre place, dry and desert-like yet still brimming with stone and volcanoes. The new resident of hell used his arm as a form of shade, looking far and wide for any form of civilization. "Well now, you don't see that every day," a feminine voice called out with a strange twang Naruto couldn't quite place but still found pleasant nonetheless. Looking through squinted eyes, the whiskered blonde felt his heart skip a beat at the beauty who was grinning down at him. While not overly tall, that didn't take away from her looks at all. Dark red skin with a blemish of white on her right arm and tail. A light coat of sweat stuck to her curvy form, obviously caused by the scorching sun. Hair the color of midnight, easily blending in with her naturally obsidian black horns. Her delighted yellow-colored eyes shone with mischief as she eyed Hell's new resident through her elegant lashes, taking in his muscled form with a bite of her lip. As Naruto stepped out of the crater, he finally noticed a major difference in height between himself and the short-stacked demoness. "I gotta say, I've never seen a demon like yourself around these parts." Naruto laughed weakly as he ran a clawed hand through his still blonde mess of spikes. I'm new." The short stack gave an unladylike snort, placing one hand on her arched hip. Clearly yet she still offered him a look of concern as she gestured to the crater he made that was still a mighty fall. "You okay, mister?" "Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto." "I'm fine, thank you, miss." She gave a devilish gap-toothed grin with a flirty wink. "You can just call me Millie, handsome." "Are you sure you're okay?" Naruto raised a golden brow in confusion. It was only now that he realized he had been talking to this short, attractive woman in nothing but ripped shorts. The whiskered blonde flushed slightly in embarrassment, coughing into his fist as his reddened cheeks started to lose color. Sorry, you wouldn't happen to have any clothes I could borrow, would you? Naruto bowed his head in thanks as he started to follow the short stack's lead, unable to stop staring at her swaying hips. Thank you again, Millie. Anytime, Suga. Thankfully the walk was short, but during it they passed the time just talking, getting to know one another, and helping the war hero learn more about his new home. So this Lucifer guy fell from a place called heaven, and then he made hell or something, and now he rules all of it? Naruto asked as he walked step in step with Millie. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hell collects all the souls of sinners, young and all, but that isn't the case for every demon. Like me and my family, the Whiskered Demon hummed at the short stack's words. It seemed he had a lot to learn about this place. Iruka would be proud to see him actively trying to know more about his new home. I'm actually curious about something. Millie turned to face Naruto with narrowed eyes, hands resting on her swell hips. How come you're here? You don't exactly give off the presence of a sinner. If anything, you feel as if you don't belong here. The former ninja wasn't sure what to say. She was right. He wasn't meant to be here. I choose to come here. The demoness was expecting a lot of different answers. Him admiring that he wanted to come to hell wasn't one of them. Why would you do such a thing? Millie asked, her lovely yellow eyes shining with confusion. Naruto smiled faintly as he thought of his large furry orange friend. It wasn't me who just died. Probably my best friend in the whole world died with me, but they weren't going where I was going. I didn't feel like it was fair that he had to die, that he had to suffer because of past mistakes. So I took his place and he got to go back. Millie looked touched by the blonde demon's selflessness. Something that was uncommon here in hell. You willingly gave up a spot in heaven just so your friend would live? Naruto had definitely earned the demoness' respect. They continued to walk across the desert hellscape, and the whiskered blonde was begging to understand. Just like everywhere else, the land was dead, or appeared to be dead. Large wooden fences surrounding the farm looking worn and ready to break down. The new resident of hell squinted his crimson-colored eyes. Rough and Tumbleweed Ranch was engraved elegantly onto an arch that led to Millie's house. This is where you live? Naruto asked as he looked down at the little demoness by his side. It ain't much, but it's home. Millie's house looked like it had seen better days, but it still managed to have a certain warm and welcoming presence. We'll rustle you up some clothes and then you can be on your way. I'll just let my mama and sister know you're here. Would you like a drink? Naruto politely refused as he slowly took in her home, eyeing the large photograph that hung gently on the wall. He could easily make out Millie and what he assumed was both her mother and her sister hugging an older man. That's my daddy. He passed recently. Naruto frowned. His stomach sank as he looked down at the short demoness with understanding and remorse. I'm sorry. It's fine, Suga. Daddy wouldn't want us to be mopping about anyways. Just as Millie was walking out the room, she called out to the whiskered blonde, you just sit right there, and I'll be back in a jiff. Naruto looked around before spotting a place he could rest, even if it was only for a moment. The blonde sighed as he practically sank into the couch. His sore and tired muscles thanked him as he finally gave his new body a rest. That's when it hit him. He had a new body. Naruto was instantly back on his feet, looking down to notice not much had changed. His skin was still a regular peach color like when he was alive, but his nails had sharpened to claws. The whiskered blonde searched around the home until he found a small mirror. The ex-shinobi's eyes widened comically as finally noticed the two new horns sprouting from his head, meshing with spiked locks. His once brilliant sapphire was now a hellish crimson, reminding him greatly of his old partner. Naruto was cut from his musings by a woman's voice, someone who clearly wasn't Millie. Now what do we have here? The whiskered blonde whirled around to see the short stack's rather tall and attractive sister, leaning against the doorway and eyeing him like a woman starved. Sally May, you stay away from him, Millie warned her older sister as walked into the room carrying neatly folded clothes in her arms. TCH, you're so selfish, Millie. Sally May pouted down at her sister before her lips spread in a sinful grin. Always worried that your big sis would steal all your little boyfriends away. Sally May smiled sheepishly as she brushed back her long bang only for it to fall back in place, covering half her face. Sorry mama, I just can't resist teasing Millie. The girl's mother finally turned to face Naruto with a delighted but tired smile. I'm so sorry about that. I'm Lin and welcome to our home. Millie told me everything. We found some old clothes that the girl's brothers used to wear. I'm sure they'll fit just fine. The whiskered demon looked thankful as he took the clothes from Millie. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. Lin's pleasant mood started to shift as she saw the sun was beginning to set and a heavy wind was starting to howl. Oh dear. Looks like a storm is starting to kick in. We can't send you out in such terrible weather. I wouldn't want to be a bother. Naruto was immediately cut off by Millie's mother taking him by the hand, practically dragging him up the stairs to one of her old son's rooms. It's no problem at all, sweetie. Now tell me, what would you like for supper? Lin asked as she dragged the crimson-eyed blonde around the corner, just leaving the two sisters standing alone in silence. Dibs. Millie glared up at her sister with a cute little frown, hands resting on her shapely hips. No way, Sally Mae. You leave him be, or what? Millie looked ready to leap up and attack her smug-looking sister. The little short stack grit her teeth and balled her knuckles until the skin was shifting from red to white, ready to throw down with her big sister, only for Lin to walk in with a disapproving frown. Oh, honestly, I can't leave you girls alone for a second without someone starting something. I wasn't doing nothing, Mama. Lin was quick to silence her daughter with a glare. Sally Mae looked away from her mother with a pout. Sally Mae grit her teeth as begrudgingly mumbled out, I'm sorry, Millie. Millie couldn't stay mad at her sister, sighing as she accepted her apology and gave one of her own. Before anything else could be said, they heard the creaking of stairs. Naruto walked down freshly cleaned and fully clothed. The short-sleeved shirt fit him just right, showing off his well-earned muscles after years of fighting and training. The red went surprisingly well with his black jeans and shoes. Millie gave another gap-toothed grin, eyeing her fellow resident of Hell with a bite of her lip. He certainly does clean up nice. Lin and Sally Mae couldn't help but notice their daughter/sister's reaction. It was honestly surprising. Ever since her father had died, the short stack hadn't so much as given any demons interested in her a second glance. Millie strutted up to the whiskered blonde, grinning up at him with a twinkle shining in demonic eyes. Well, don't you look better? Naruto grinned as he looked down at his new clothes. I feel better. I gotta say, I never thought red was my color. Sally Mae leaned against the blonde, bumping him with her hip. It definitely suits you, but I preferred how you were before. Millie was back to glaring daggers at her big sister, her tail swishing around like an angry feline. Lin, not wanting to deal with another argument, ushered everyone towards the table. Now you lot just sit here. I'll be back with the food in a jiffy. As Naruto was taking his seat, he could smell something delicious wafting in from the kitchen. Millie slipped into the seat next to the blonde, glancing at him from time to time. Sally Mae sat across from the two, tapping her finger against the wooden table as she waited for her mother to return. The whiskered blonde felt the need to break the sudden yet loud silence, turning to look down at the small southern belle by his side. I saw some photos of your brothers. Where are they? Millie sighed as she slumped in her chair. Ever since Daddy died, my brothers have been traveling all across Hell finding work to send money back to the farm. So it's just been Mama, Sally Mae and I taking care of everything. Naruto frowned as he looked over to Sally Mae. The oldest daughter gave a sad nod of confirmation. It's been tough on all of us, but we managed to get by. I think it's been especially hard on Mama. She stands tall, but I know she's tired. I just wish there was a way we could do more. The new resident of Hell's mind began to wonder and think. Unfortunately, before he could ponder more, Lin came back carrying a large pot full of stew. Hope y'all are hungry. Naruto filled his bowl up and was quick to dig in, sighing in content as the warm and delicious food filled him up completely. The woman in the room couldn't help but giggle at the look of pure nirvana on the whiskered blonde's face. Is it really that good? Lin asked with a smile. Naruto grinned as he was nearly halfway done with his bowl, his spoon scrapped along the side trying to get more of the delicious stew. It's definitely one of the best meals I've ever had. Well, if that's the case, help yourself to as much as you like. The crimson-eyed demon thanked the matriarch of the farm, helping himself to seconds and even thirds. When he was done, all he felt was overall fullness and content. Naruto noticed Lin was about to take everything to the kitchen herself, getting out of his seat and wandering over to the older demoness side. Here, let me help. Oh honey, you don't have to do that, Lin said as she watched the whiskered blonde stack and started to carry the bowls to the kitchen. It's the least I can do. Millie rested her chin on her hands as she watched Naruto leave, frowning when she saw both her mother and sister watching her with matching smiles. What are you two looking at? Sally Mae shrugged as she rested her chin on her hand, smirking over at her sister. Nothing, sis. It's just I've never seen you so taken by someone so quickly. Millie shrugged as she looked away from her family, hiding the smile that was quickly starting to spread. I don't know what you mean. Lin rolled her eyes as she grinned at her youngest. Oh please honey, this is the first time in a long time where I've seen you smile so large and so bright. Millie's cheeks managed to glow an even darker shade of red as she glanced into the kitchen, watching Naruto as scrubbed and cleaned the dishes. You're reading too much into it, Mama. I just think he's very sweet. That's all. Sally Mae grinned devilishly as she saw the perfect opportunity to tease her little sister. If that's the case, then you don't mind leaving him for your big sis, do you, Millie? I already told you to stay away, Sally Mae. Make me. Lynn sighed as she watched Millie leap across the table, tackling her sister out of her chair, onto the floor. Naruto rushed out of the kitchen, worried something had happened to the kind family that had taken him in. He felt his worries wash away as he watched the two demons rough house with one another. Lynn, noticing the blonde demon, waved him over. Don't worry, sweetie. They're always like this. I guess I still have a lot to learn about this place, Naruto muttered in amusement as he watched the two sisters roll around the room in their scuffle. The matriarch of the family seemed to notice just how tired the new resident of Hell really looked. Honey, you look like you're one step away from dropping dead. Why don't you get some rest? Naruto tried to argue, but one look from the demoness killed any protest that was starting to form. With a final glance at Millie, who managed to give him a grin even while stuck in a headlock from her sister, the whiskered blonde couldn't help but chuckle. He was glad he met Millie when he did. He was sure he would have been fine and found his way, but he preferred how things had gone. The new resident of Hell could tell that his life was going to be much more interesting with her around. A pale moonlight shined into Naruto's temporary room. The hellstorm had died down, night had settled, and everything seemed peaceful, and yet, the whiskered blonde found himself awake, staring at his ceiling with a thoughtful frown on his face. He didn't regret his choices. If offered the choice again, he would take it in a heartbeat, but the thought of never seeing any of his friends or family ever again was a sobering. Naruto sighed. He needed to think of something else. He needed a game plan. The blonde had a faint idea of how this worked. The 7 different rings, Stolas, the Goetic Prince of Hell, and the King of Hell, Lucifer. However, these weren't the only new things the new resident of Hell was learning. He was changing. Ever since he got here, he found himself feeling certain desires tripling what they used to be. Every time he looked at Millie, he found himself on fire. His heart would begin to race, and he couldn't keep his eye off her no matter how hard he tried. He would always take in every feature: her silky-looking hair, the striking shade of her skin, her enchanting eyes, her curves. Everything about her was beautiful. Naruto muttered as he sighed once more, dragging a hand down his tired face. He really should get some sleep. Knock, knock. Naruto looked at the door with a raised brow as knuckles faintly tapped against the door. Forgetting he wasn't wearing a shirt, the whiskered demon got out of bed and opened the door, surprised to see Millie standing there with a sheepish smile. Millie, I heard you were awake and was hoping to talk to you. Sally Mae was dead tired, asleep in her room. The short stack knew that this was the perfect opportunity to spend some uninterrupted time with him. Oh. Come in. Naruto looked bashful as Millie walked in, finally noticing that all she was wearing was a short sleeveless top that left her stomach exposed and short shorts that stopped mid-thigh. The demoness looked around her brother's room with a look of fondness before placing herself on his bed, glancing over towards the blonde with a smile. Naruto got the hint as he sat next to Millie, the wall cool on his bare back as he leaned against it. How are you? The blonde had to pause for a moment as he thought of the demoness words. How was he? I'm good. Millie raised a brow, leaning against Naruto, enjoying how his warm skin felt against her own. Really? Yeah, I think I am. Just seeing you with your family made me think of my own. The demoness frowned. She hated seeing such unhappiness hiding behind his pretty eyes. Are they not here in Hell? Naruto shook his head with a sad smile. No, they're somewhere else. It's just me down here. The short stack gained a thoughtful look before her black-colored lips curled into a happy smile, yellow eyes twinkling as she nudged the blonde with her arm. Well, it doesn't have to be. Millie gave her signature gap-toothed grin as she rested her head on Naruto's arm, comforting him to the best of her ability. If you ever find yourself feeling alone, you could always come visit me, Mama, and even Sally Mae. I certainly wouldn't object to seeing your handsome mug around here more often. Thank you, Millie. The short stack felt her heart skip a beat at his smile, more pure and brighter than anything she had ever seen here in Hell. The moonlight seemed to frame him in a holy veil, contrasting with his demonic appearance. It was such a strange new feeling from Millie, but she couldn't say she hated it. No, she definitely wanted to feel more of what she was feeling, what it meant. Was it just like what her mama and daddy had? Millie sighed as she nuzzled into the blonde's muscled arm. Do you know what you will do? Where will you go? Naruto hummed and thought, I'm not sure. I'm more a figure it out as I go along type of man. Millie smiled tiredly up at the blonde demon, her lashes fluttering as she felt the want to sleep drawing ever closer. Surprising the blonde with a gentle peck to his whiskered cheek, enjoying the look of shock appearing briefly on his face before he looked back down at her with a smile. I'm sure you'll make the right choice, whatever you choose. The two continued to talk for a little bit more before the demoness headed off to bed, giving Naruto a quiet good night. As she stepped out of the room, he found himself alone once more, yet he couldn't help but bring his hand up to tenderly brush the spot where she kissed him. The whiskered blonde got out of bed and looked out the window, frowning as he took in part of the run-down farm. An idea started to form. He had to thank them, and he was sure he just figured out the perfect way. Morning, Naruto breathed and then gave a deep exhale as he took in the cold morning winds. The crack of dawn was only an hour away and he wanted to surprise the girls before they woke up. The blonde demon could only hope that what he was about to do was going to work. His clawed hands formed a very familiar cross sign. That's when he felt it. Kurama's power, or rather, his power now. It was bubbling up towards the surface. Kage Bunshin. Poof! Smoke filled the area, blinding Naruto briefly. The wind blew the white clouds away, revealing a small army of clones. The whiskered demon stared at his clones, then backed down at his hands in shock. A chuckle managed to escape as he clenched his hands into fists. He felt whole again. Alright, I want to thank Millie and her family, so we're gonna fix this place up a bit and do all their chores for them. You got it? Got it! Naruto watched with a smile as his clones rushed off, following his orders without complaint. The war hero felt stronger than he ever had, the chakra surging throughout his body. It was intense. Nothing was like this before when he would mix his chakra with Kurama's. Naruto glanced over to the house behind him with a fond smile. This in his mind was the least he could do after everything they'd done for him. Millie always loved to sleep in. Years of growing up on a farm did little to get rid of this habit of her, but that didn't mean she could. The responsibilities of helping her mother and sister mattered more to her than lazing about in bed all day. So when her alarm blared to life, waking the demoness up, she didn't fight it. Yawning loudly, the short stack rubbed her eyes as she put on some clothes that laid in a sort of neat pile on her messy floor. Millie walked up towards Naruto's temporary room, frowning when she couldn't see him in his freshly made bed. Her heart started to sink. Did he leave? Without saying goodbye? The thought hurt the demoness more than she would like to admit. Her mood quickly started to sour. The short stack was down the stairs and out the door before she knew it, never minding the door slamming shut behind her. The demoness shivered slightly as the cold morning air ran across her hot red skin. Millie, finally fully awake, was astonished at what she saw. An army of blonde-haired demons were running around in groups, fixing and doing all the chores of the farm. Naruto, or rather the original, finally seemed to notice the short demoness standing there in shock. Morning, Millie. Mornin', what's going on? How are there so many of you? The whiskered blonde grinned sheepishly as he glanced back to his clones. I forgot to mention I can do this, huh? Millie slowly nodded, her yellow-colored eyes shining with awe. This is amazing! The demoness rushed past the smiling blonde, stopping a clone so she could inspect him properly. They looked just like you. Naruto grinned as he felt a few of his clones disappear, their information transferred to him. It looks like everything was close to getting finished. They're my clones. I can make a bunch more. Millie threw a mischievous smile up at Naruto, her hands resting on her shapely hips. You're just full of surprises, ain't ya? Well, back home they did call me the most unpredictable man alive. The two demons heard the door open. Sally Mae walked out with her jaw practically to the floor, unable to believe her eyes. Lin soon followed, almost replicating her oldest daughter's shock perfectly. What in tarnation? Millie raced to her mother's side, holding her tight by the arm due to her excitement, gesturing with her other to Naruto's clones. Mama, Naruto has magic. The blonde demon smiled weakly as he scratched his whiskered cheek with one of his clawed fingers. Yeah, kinda. It took Lin a moment before she noticed the farm hadn't looked better in years. Dear Satan. Naruto, sweetie, did you do this? The whiskered blonde grinned, walking so he was standing in front of the matriarch of the house. You all did so much for me, more than anyone really. I thought this was the least I could do. And what exactly did you do, honey? Lin asked with a smile, moving so she was standing beside the whiskered blonde, watching as his clones continued to work hard. I had them start with stacking the hay, fixed the barn up and gave it a fresh coat, fixed up the old fence easy enough and made it steadier. Naruto said as if it was no big deal, and he would be right. It was his ace in the hole for a reason. Dealt with all the animals as best as we could, but it wasn't too bad. They didn't cause me any trouble. You'll also be happy to know, I've plowed the fields and seeded them to bring in a brand new harvest. The new resident of Hell missed the looks of utter disbelief. Millie's excited grin. Sally Mae lost her usual allure of seduction, baffled just like her mother. Honey, do you realize what you've done? I just helped a little. A little? Lin laughed as she gave Naruto a hug and a tender kiss on the cheek. You just did weeks' worth of work in just a few short hours. That's more than a little. The blonde demon looked sheepish as he offhandedly looked to the side, a tint of red dusting his whiskered cheeks from the praise. It was no big deal. Lin shared a glance with her daughters, having a silent conversation with their eyes alone before turning back to face the smiling demon. Honey, we would like to make you an offer. An offer? The farm is struggling and it's not easy, just the three of us. Would you be willing to stay? Even if it was for a little while? Naruto proved he earned his title as the most unpredictable man alive. Without any hesitation agreed, much to the demoness' shock. You're really gonna stick around? Millie asked with a grin, relieved that the blonde was going to stay. Of course, Mills, Naruto said as he scooped Millie into a one-armed hug, making the short-stacked demoness squeal in excitement. Rubbing her cheek affectionately against his own, I really like it here, and the company is top-notch. Well, Mama said it looks like for the first time in a while we've got the day off, Sally Mae said with a wide grin, wrapping an arm around her mother's shoulders. How about we take you out for a treat? And don't say no since you deserve one. Lin bit her lip in thought before she was won over by her girl's pleading eyes. Okay, why the hell not? Millie, go show Naruto to his new room and then we'll plan where we want to go. Millie gave her mother a thumbs up over her shoulder as she dragged Naruto inside by his hand. The whiskered blonde whistled at the sight of his new room. It was a bit bigger than the Demoness brothers' room, but it was pretty bare. However, the new resident of Hell didn't mind. It just meant he could add his own flair to it, which he was pretty happy about. What do you think? It's nice, very roomy, Millie giggled as she shut the door, just leaving herself alone with the crimson-eyed demon. Hey Naruto, that was for all the work you did help in, and this. Millie gave a softer, loving kiss this time. Expressing all of her emotions in a single act of intimate contact was for staying. Before Naruto could do or say anything, the demoness gave him a wink and then she was gone, leaving the whiskered blonde to sit there alone in his room, stunned. It didn't last long. Soon a massive grin spread across his still tingling lips. Damn. It had been a long but amazing 2 months for one Naruto Uzumaki. He had quickly adapted to his new home here in Hell, and the farm that had been dwindling down in a spiral was now flourishing better than it ever did before. Still, Naruto kind of liked it here. He did at times miss his friends and family, but what he had now, it wasn't too bad. He actually quite enjoyed the farming life. It was simple and humble, but it had one thing that he didn't have when he was human: people to come home to. The whiskered blonde shook his head, flinging fresh beads of sweat off his brow. Damn, it's hot. No kiddin', Sally Mae's voice echoed throughout the barn, husky and smoky. Her yellow-colored eyes narrowed sinfully as she took in Naruto's half-naked form. You're still working hard, huh? The crimson-eyed demon chuckled as he finished stacking the last pile of hay. It would seem like his clones were done. When there's a job to do, I'm not gonna stop until it's finished. Been like that since I was a kid. Sally Mae giggled at Naruto's large vulpine-like grin. It was strange, but he seemed to brighten hell. If that were possible, I admire that. Me and the others weren't too different when we were young, but I'm not here to talk about that. The two finally found the need to break apart, taking deep breaths as they stared deep into one another's eyes. Naruto was tempted to do more, rip off Sally Mae's clothes and show the demoness a good time that she would never forget, but he couldn't. The oldest sister frowned when the whiskered blonde put her down, scratching the back of his head awkwardly as he was unable to meet her eye. What's wrong, handsome? I thought you were enjoying it. I was, it's just. You like Millie? Naruto smiled sheepishly as he looked down at the grinning demoness. That obvious, huh? The whiskered blonde was left stunned as he watched her leave, hips swaying seductively the entire time. Naruto released the breath he didn't even know he was holding, chuckling to himself as he threw on his shirt and closed up the barn. I don't think I'll ever get used to this place. Sometime later, it was frantic as Millie searched around her room for something to wear. She wanted to be perfect. Well, she wanted everything to be perfect. Naruto had just asked her on a date, much to her joy. It wasn't anything too fancy, just to the Moonlight Festival, but even so, she would be spending time with him, and that's all that mattered to her. The wood creaked beneath her nimble feet as she posed in front of the mirror, holding different outfits up to her curvy figure, frowning as she was unable to find something that would blow the whiskered demon away. Millie hummed to herself, nibbling on her finger as she struggled to decide, until her yellow-colored eyes lit up. Oh, this would be perfect. While the demoness was getting dressed upstairs, Naruto was leaning against the porch, watching as the sun started to set over the Valley of Volcanoes. He was dressed simply enough, A simple black shirt covered by a hooded plaid long-sleeved button-up shirt. Topping it off was a pair of simple jeans. Sorry to keep you waiting, Suga. Naruto's jaw dropped, heat flushed to his cheeks. He was left stunned at the drop-dead beauty grinning up at him, mischief shining in her sinful eyes. Millie, you look. Well, Millie winked as she walked past the blonde demon, hips shaking with every step. I was hoping for woe. You clean up pretty well yourself, handsome. Naruto grinned as he fell in step with the short stack, walking to the family's local truck. You've definitely blown me away. Are you ready to go? Ready when you are. Hey, let's go then. The Harvest Moon Festival was in full swing. Families were enjoying the sights, the attractions, and the wholesome atmosphere, while demons like Naruto and Millie were happy to just be together. They walked hand in hand, or rather the demoness was leading the whiskered blonde around with a giddy smile. The crimson-eyed demon had a massive smile the entire time. Enjoyed the very familiar sounds and sights, reminding him of back home. Konoha didn't have many festivals, but when the village celebrated one, it was the place to be. People from other villages would come to enjoy the celebration, the peace between others. Gasp, that is the cutest thing I've ever seen. Millie squealed as she ran to a stall, her eyes deadlocked with a stuffed orange fox plushie. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle, his thoughts going back to his dearest friend. It is pretty cute, huh? The vendor grinned pleasantly enough at the demonic duo. Step right up. Step right up. You, sir. You look like a strong fellow. How's about you try my challenge and attempt to win your sweetheart a gift? Millie's red-colored cheeks seemed to grow a brighter red, if that was possible, a goofy smile spreading across her lips at being called his sweetheart. Naruto wasn't much better. His whisker marks gained a light shading of red too, but he forced it to die down, walking up to the stall with a confident grin. What do I need to do? The vendor sized the crimson-eyed blonde before gesturing to his right. It's a matter of strength, my boy. You see that hammer over there? It would be better to be described as a warhammer given its size and veracity. Naruto was sure he could see specks of blood all over the thing. What you need to do is pick it up and swing it down as hard as you can on that pad over there. If you hit it hard enough, then a piece of metal will shoot up and strike that bell up there, and your lovely friend here can pick any prize she wants. The whiskered blonde glanced over to the hammer, then over to Millie, staring at him with wide, cute eyes, easily making him crumble and accept. I guess I can give it a shot. The vendor grinned devilishly as guided Naruto towards the hammer. Very good, young man, very good. Let's put your strength to the test. Naruto rolled his shoulders as he looked down at the hammer's handle with narrowed eyes. So I just pick this up and then hit the other thing? The shifty demon chuckled, twirling his cartoonish mustache. That's right, my boy, but before we begin, I must warn you that is a cursed hammer. Only those with great strength can lift it. Even some of the strongest demons in all of hell can't even bud. He was interrupted mid-speech by Naruto effortlessly lifting the war hammer with ease, looking bored as he held it with one hand. Sorry, what was that? I wasn't paying attention. Naruto apologized with a sheepish laugh, never noticing the look of disbelief being sent his way by the shifty demon, and the look of adoration coming from Millie. Naruto ignored the demonic man, walking over to the pad with an easygoing smile. He used both hands to grip the handle. He made himself sturdy, unmovable. Softly he inhaled before releasing all the pent-up air in a quiet exhale. His hand tightened till his knuckles popped. With a heave he arched the hammer over his shoulder, his eyes narrowed into slits. A deep grunt left his throat as he brought the hammer down in a heavy strike. The machine shattered and the ground broke apart in massive chunks, but not before a loud ding was heard throughout the area. The vendor's jaw dropped, his dark red skin seemed a few shades paler, and his eyes wide, unblinking. Millie was staring in awe and excitement, unable to help but cheer for her favorite blonde. Way to go, Suga. You smashed that thing to pieces. Naruto looked sheepish from the praise, scratching the back of his head nervously with a smile. I guess I've always kind of been strong. Kind of is a bit of an understatement, Millie giggled out, walking away to quickly swipe the plushie she wanted. I'm starving. You hungry? I can eat. Naruto laughed out as Millie took his hand into her much smaller own, leading him through the crowds like a small guide. Later that evening, the demonic duo found a small hill to sit on, giving them a perfect view of the stage and for the harvest moon. Prince Stolas walked onto the stage with a bright smile on his beak and a sort of swagger in his step. Using strange abilities, the likes Naruto has never seen, the goetic prince of hell magic filled the area. The dark clouds swirled in the sky before parting, revealing a giant red moon sharing its glow with the land. All of the residents in the Wrath Ring cheered, thanking their lord for the blessing of a better harvest. Naruto grinned at the sight of the moon, It was so close he felt as if he could pluck it from the sky, but as he turned to face Millie, who was bathed in the moonlight, he found himself speechless. She was gorgeous. As if she could feel his stunned gaze, the short stack turned to face the whiskered blonde. "See something you like, darlin'?" "I do," Naruto said with a grin as he leaned down and caught Millie's lips in a soul-scorching kiss. Small hands ran through his golden spikes, pulling him to deepen the kiss even more. The two broke apart for air, sending each other goofy grins, before they leaned in once more for a loving and tender kiss. Naruto and Millie broke apart from the loving lip lock before turning to face the wedding guests, holding each other's hands and waving to what appeared to be the entire town in attendance. "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you, Mr. and Mrs. Uzumaki." Crimson Eyes looked down fondly at his wife. She looked breathtaking in her dress. It looked like any other wedding dress, except instead of the usual white it was black. Her hair was done up in such a way it only seemed to enhance how beautiful she was. Light races of makeup could be seen, even though in Naruto's humble opinion she didn't need it. She was already perfect in his eyes. "Congratulations, you two," Lin said as she pulled them both into a big hug, teary-eyed as she gave Millie a big kiss on the cheek. "Oh, Millie, sweetheart, you look beautiful." "Thank you, Mama," the new Mrs. Uzumaki thanked her mother as she returned the loving embrace. "Better than you, Sally Mae," Millie laughed as her sister glomped her in a tight hug before pulling back and glancing Naruto's way with a wink. "You look good, stud." Indeed he did. The whiskered blonde couldn't resist adding a bit of his own flair to it. A white dress shirt with a black tie and a sweet orange blazer in his humble opinion. "Thanks, Sally. He is handsome, isn't he?" Millie said as she jumped up and pecked his whiskered cheek. "And he's all mine." Lin and Sally Mae shared an amused smile. It had been pretty obvious to them from the very beginning, and yet they still couldn't help but be overjoyed for the married couple. Everyone gave their goodbyes and best wishes. Naruto and Millie waved one final time before their driver started the limo, leaving the happy newlywed couple alone at last. The short Demona sighed as she rested on her husband's side, smiling when he wrapped his arm around her side and pulled her in close. "Naruto, I was thinking about something." Millie looked up at Naruto, resting her chin on her hands as her eyes seemed to sparkle. "Well, you got the choice to come here or go where your family is, and you chose here. What would you do if someone gave you that choice again?" The whiskered blonde smiled as he pulled his lovely wife onto his lap, cupping her chin and staring down with all the love and adoration he could muster. "I've thought about that myself, and I get the same answer every time." Millie bit her lips as she nuzzled into his warm hand, battering her eyes as she listened to what he had to say. "If I somehow got the offer again, I would turn it down, again and again, because I could never leave the love of my life behind." Millie buried her face into her husband's neck, finding her well tested as she waited till they got to their newlywed suite. The room they would be staying in for the next week was nothing short of stunning and pretty damn expensive. Naruto whistled in appreciation as he carried Millie into the room. The little short stack could barely contain herself. She rushed out of his arms to the nearest window, practically pressing her face against the glass. "Baby, are you seeing this?" It was indeed a rather beautiful city, filled with elegant buildings, skyscrapers not fully seen but hidden by the clouds. Bright lights filled the country girl's vision as she took in everything the city had to offer her. There was a part of her that wanted to get out of her dress, throw something on, take Naruto by the hand and explore to her heart's content, but there was a much stronger part of her that wanted to spend the night with her husband. So with swiftness that surprised even Naruto, she found herself pinning the love of her life, working her hips sensually as she placed soft kisses along his chest, up his neck and finally on his lips. The kiss was like fire, each one was more addictive than the last. He ran his hand up her smooth legs, stopping on her rather thick backside. A devious grin spread across his lips as he brought his hand down in a surprising smack. Naruto watched his wife twitch and spasm, wiping her delectable juices off his chin with the back of his hand, grinning down at slightly panting Demonis. "Done already?" Naruto could only quirk an amused brow at his wife before she started to pepper a trail of kisses down his chest, along his abs, stopping when she found her rigid prize. Millie didn't wait for his response as she dove down, swallowing his length with every bob of her head. Her black plump lips kissed the base before going back up and repeating the process all over again. Naruto felt like he was in heaven. Ironic, he knows, but he didn't think actual heaven could compare to the pleasure his wife could give him. A tickling sensation ran along his chest and even faintly tracing his jaw, peeking open an eye. He couldn't help his grin when he realized it was his wife's tail. Naruto had lived in hell for a little while now, and amongst that time living with the imps he found out their tails are extremely sensitive, something he loved to take advantage of. "Sorry, Mill, I couldn't resist. Naruto watched as Millie's face contorted in pleasure, her lovely yellow eyes dazed, a smile on her lips and her smooth red skin starting to bead with sweat. Everything about her drove him wild, making him hunger for more. Millie's eyes rolled back in ecstasy as she squirted on Naruto's lap, feeling complete as she was filled with his hot essence. She nuzzled into his pecs as she sighed content. She looked up at her husband, batting her sinful eyes with a mischievous smile ready for round two. Just try and stop me. Naruto kept his promise as he made love to Millie almost everywhere in their room. It didn't matter. In the bathroom, against the walls and the windows, hell, using his chakra, they even did it on the ceiling. Nothing was spared. By the time they were done, they found themselves back on the broken bed, Millie safely in Naruto's arms, steadily falling asleep. The gorgeous imp yawned as she nuzzled into Naruto, smiling up the blonde with nothing but care and affection in her eyes. I love you, Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto chuckled, kissing Millie softly on the head as he softly ran his hand up and down her naked back. I love you too, Mrs. Uzumaki. Satisfied and with each other, they couldn't think of a better way to end this wonderful day than laying in the arms of the one you love the most. Beep, 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 smash. Naruto peeked open, a crimson eye, glaring at the destroyed alarm clock currently crushed underneath his balled-up fists. I just bought that one. With another sigh, the whiskered blonde sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing his eyes before looking over him a shoulder at his still sleeping wife of many years, Millie. Not quite willing to wake his wife just yet, Naruto sent a clone to put a pot of coffee on while he got ready. No longer did he wear orange and black jumpsuits, but moving up to a two-piece black with a dark gray interior suit, he looked sharp and professional. The smell of fresh coffee hit his nose in a delightful and entrancing way. He poured himself a cup before going back to his and Millie's room, quietly approaching his sleeping wife. He gently shook her awake, smiling as her eyes fluttered open, looking adorable as she gave him a sleepy smile of her own. Mornin' baby. Morning, hun. Sleep well? Naruto asked as he played with Millie's hair. With you with me every night, how could I not? Millie said before groaning as she buried her face into her pillow. I don't want to go to work today, I just want to stay in bed. You know you could join me. Naruto chuckled as he lightly spanked his wife's backside. No can do. Mox is probably already outside waiting for us, and I'm not dealing with Blitzo by myself. So get your cute ass up and ready. As he walked away, he could faintly make out her frustrated groan before the following sounds of shuffling out of bed. As he sat there waiting for his wife, he couldn't help but think. He never thought that his simple act of taking Kurama's place would have brought him to the love of his life. He was glad he did what he did, and every time he looked at her, it just confirmed to him that he would do it again. Millie came out in her usual clothes, mainly a simple black choker, a cold-shoulder black crop top with gold buttons where the straps at the top meet the torso piece, torn black pants, fingerless black gloves, and black footwear that does not cover her hoof-like toes. You ready, baby? Naruto had a pair of dark sunglasses resting on the bridge of his nose, and it looked like he was dozing with his arms crossed, but he was alert and ready to whip out his gun in a moment's notice. But fortunately, that wouldn't be needed. The bus he and his wife were in bounced on the road, their driver putting the pedal to the metal, avoiding crashing into his fellow drivers on the road by mere inches. Millie wasn't fazed as she lightly napped the entire bus ride, using Naruto's lap as a pillow. The whiskered demon was running his fingers softly through her hair while also staring at his imp friend/neighbor, Moxie, in amusement. It was only 8, and this seemed to be his second panic attack of the morning. I got a feeling something horrible is going to happen today. Naruto had to resist the urge to roll his eyes at his overly dramatic friend. You say that every day, Mox. That's because something does happen every day, and it's all gonna happen because of our asshole boss. The whiskered demon had to give the little imp a point there, but then again, he was a bit of a worrywart. I still think you're being dramatic. Millie rolled in his lap, a bump briefly disrupting her sleep, but it didn't take her long before she found a more comfortable position. Mark my words, something weird and emotional scarring is gonna happen today. Moxie shivered. Anything pertaining to Blitzo was bound to go astray. Well, yeah, now it's probably gonna happen because you just jinxed yourself. Naruto chuckled. It was universal law that you don't tell yourself what's about to happen, because 9 out of 10 times, it usually comes true. Wake up, baby, we're here. Yowen, thank you, Suga. Millie pecked her husband on the lips before jumping to the floor with a big stretch, walking off the bus with Naruto and Moxie towards a giant gray building that stood out better than most thanks to the pair of imp horns attached to each side. Their shared elevator flew past the floors until it stopped on the third to last floor. The doors slid open to reveal what looked like a normal office space. Cream and dark brown striped wallpaper, a receptionist's desk and a standard water cooler. However, the beautiful hellhound, who looked like she wished she was anywhere else but here, soon found her mood doing a complete 180 at the sight of the grinning whiskered blonde. "Morning, Loona." Naruto waved casually to the hellhound demoness. Almost quicker than his eye could catch, she hurriedly put her phone away and plastered a smile on her face. "Good morning, Naruto." You wouldn't think it possible for someone's mood to change in an instant, but that was what happened when she saw the oncoming imp's Millie fat ass. "Why is she always so nice to you?" Moxie grumbled to his tall friend, who held the door open for himself and Millie. "Natural charm. You guys get settled while I go look for Blitz," Naruto said as he went towards Blitz's office, while Millie and Moxie sat down on the sofa and started chatting animatedly, and Loona went back to surfing through her phone. If you looked closely though, you could see her scrolling through Naruto's and Millie's shared Hellsgram profile. Envy was clear as hell was hot, though she found herself straightening her back, pushing out her bust to seem a bit more appealing as the affection of her desires walked to her father's office. The whiskered demon smiled at Loona before banging his fist on Blitz's door. "What? Everyone is here and ready for the meeting," Naruto yelled out to his boss. "Oh, Naruto, it's you? Perfect, come in here for a minute." The ex-shinobi stared at the door with narrowed eyes. "I'm not doing that, Blitzo. Only if you can promise me you're wearing pants this time. It's not a rule unless there's a sign on the wall. I won that court case, Naruto." Blitz's office was actually clean for once, and the imp himself seemed hard at work, or he was pretending to be hard at work. "What do you need, Blitz?" The long-horned imp leaned back in his chair, pursing his lips as he looked at Naruto seriously. "Naruto, a company is only as strong as its weakest branch." Naruto raised a golden brow, folding his arms as he asked, "Are you saying I'm our weakest branch?" "No, Moxie is. What I'm saying is you are like another strong, girthy branch," Blitzo said, stretching his hands before sitting them on his desk, "and because of that, you get the honor of working by yourself today." "You lucky dog." Naruto listened with narrowed eyes. It wasn't unusual for Blitzo to send him on solo missions, but the way he was acting was suspicious. "What's the job, HM?" "Oh, nothing. Just, protect Stella and Octavia Goichia," said the tall imp, mumbling the last words. "I'm sorry, did you just say Stella and Octavia Goichia? As in the wife and daughter of the husband you're banging?" Blitzo looked offended by Naruto's true statement, banging his clawed fist on his desk as he barked. "Just do it. I don't need your sass talk." Naruto smirked. He could see his boss was desperate, so why not take advantage of such a fine situation? "What's in it for me? How about I don't fire you?" Blitzo snapped as he leaned back in his chair with a smirk. "Bitch, you can't afford to." The tall imp mimicked the blonde demon's earlier action before slumping forward in defeat. "Grown, what do you want?" "I want a pay increase and some vacation days for me and Millie," Naruto demanded. He promised his wife that he would somehow convince Blitzo that they could get a couple days off to go to the beach. "Hell, 3 rings down." "Fine, but leave now. She was expecting you an hour ago." Crimson eyes widened behind his dark, expensive sunglasses. He stared at his boss in genuine disbelief. "What? Why are you just telling me this now? Don't you have my number, you bum?" As usual, he gave Millie a kiss goodbye and Loona a wave after he explained to the gang his solo mission. He didn't know why, but deep down in his gut, it was telling him something interesting was going to happen. Whether that was good or bad was yet to be seen. Thanks to his boss's probably on purpose blunder, Naruto had to rush towards the Goichia mansion. He was a missable black blur as he traveled across the Pride Ring. He wasn't even winded as he stared at the royal family's beautiful home. Whistle damn, Konoha never had any places this nice. The ex-shinobi had to admit, but he was confused when he couldn't see any guards or any form of protection to the elegant staircase leading towards the entrance. He paused before he took another step, eyes narrowing as his instincts screamed at him not to take another step forward. Naruto's demonic eyes scanned the area. That's when he saw it. A thin veil completely surrounding and protecting the Goichia home, its barrier visible only to the strongest of Hell's residents capable of seeing it. With a sigh, the blonde-haired demon called his boss, thankful for once that he wasn't beeping around. "What do you want?" "There's a barrier," Naruto said blandly. This was so typical of Blitzo, he could only speculate at what else his incompetent boss left out of his adding. "Oh, that. Don't worry, Stolas already knows you're coming, and so you should be able to cross with no problem." "How?" "Whatever you say, boss man." Have fun. Naruto didn't fully understand what he meant until he heard screaming coming from inside. The blonde assassin sighed as he stepped through the barrier. Asshole. The whiskered demon braced himself as he racked his knuckles against the door. He didn't have to wait long until a small red imp who looked very tired answered the door. Hello, are you Naruto Uzumaki? Sure am. Are the, princesses ready? Naruto asked as he quickly flashed the servant imp his eye. I'm afraid Princess Stella is on the phone and Princess Octavia is still in her room. The poor guy looked tired and the blonde whiskered demon couldn't help but feel sympathetic for the little guy. It was ironically enough fit for royalty. Naruto whistled in appreciation before the screaming of the older princess was heard once again. The whiskered blonde was impressed considering she wasn't even on this floor. So, is this a common thing? The assassin/bodyguard couldn't help but ask, a strong headache already starting to form. Unfortunately, sir. Naruto rubbed his brow at the imp's answer before pointing at the elevator side grate. So I just take that lift there? Yes, sir, and good luck. Thanks. Naruto wasn't sure if they tipped, but he felt like the little guy deserved it, and judging by his grateful smile, he was all too happy to accept. He stood in the center of the elevator, preparing himself for what was going to be a long day. Top floor. Ding! The doors peeled open and the enraged screaming of the princess became more clear in our bed. Stolas? How dare you bring that filthy imp into our home and our bed no less? Why, Princess Stella paused mid-shout, her crimson eyes traveling to the most peculiar demon she had ever seen. He looked so mortal, human. If it wasn't for his horns and eyes, she would have thought an actual human found his way to hell. Naruto finally had the chance to fully see the princess, and he had to admit it, she was quite the looker. She was tall, taller than him, but given what lurked in hell, the whiskered blonde wasn't surprised. If there was a word to describe the princess before him, then he simply would have to say she was beautiful with all her avian features. Ever since Naruto landed in hell, his concept of beauty, or how people looked, was steadily warped of what it once was when he was human. Now he didn't really care all about appearance or any useless crap like that. All he cared about was what's inside. That's why he loved his Millie, the little firecracker, but then again didn't help she was as beautiful as hell was hot. Giving his full attention to Stella, he watched as she walked with grace befitting a royal of her station, stopping until she was right in front of the Uzumaki demon, and staring down at him with narrowed eyes. So you are the one sent to protect my daughter and I. Naruto rested a hand on his hip and held out the other for Stella to take with a rather charming grin. Nodding his head as he said, right you are, princess. Naruto Uzumaki, at your service. Stella stared at him, then his hand with a raised brow. He's quite forward for someone of his station, but I suppose I'll play along. The princess accepted his hand into her larger own and was surprised by how warm and how strong his grip felt. The princess cleared her throat as she took her clawed hand away. Pleasure. You're here to take my daughter and myself out, correct? That is the plan, princess. Naruto nodded as he looked around. It was the fanciest place he'd ever been in. Gold, beautiful bits of marble. If you could think of it, they most definitely had it. Humph. If you manage to get my daughter out of her cursed room, then we'll go. If not, then I'm afraid you've come here for nothing. Stella muttered, as she walked towards where she was previously sitting, sipping some tea in hopes of cooling her still raging anger. I see. Well, I'll see what I can do. I got a knack for this type of thing. Naruto promised as he looked towards the stairs, pointing at them as he asked, is that where Princess Octavia is? Sigh, just go up those stairs and follow the sound of her horrid music. You'll find her in her room, where she always is. Stella muttered the last part to herself, but the whiskered demon heard it all the same. He looked back to see the mother deep in thought. Right. Don't worry, princess, I'll be back in a jiff. Naruto went up the stairs and followed down a long hall. Stella was right. All he really had to do was follow the music, and he found himself standing before Octavia's door. The blonde assassin paused as he considered his approach before shrugging and decided to just rely on the subtle Uzumaki charm. Bang, bang, bang! Octavia slightly jumped on her rather luxurious bed. Her star-designed curtains that seemed like space itself had bled onto the cotton silk that surrounded her bed. Her room was that of a typical teenager, but extremely clean. Of course, there were band posters on the wall, some of older bands, while others were some of her personal favorite singers. The moody teen sighed as walked towards the door to who she assumed was her mother. None of the serving imp were bold enough to do such a thing in their house. Octavia's pink eyes narrowed, Her mother was probably only here to scream about how awful her music was. With a mental sigh, the owlet opened the door awaiting to see Stella glaring down at her. Instead she saw a demon or perhaps a sinner, but she couldn't be sure. He was the most human sinner she had ever seen. "Sorry for the knock, princess. I wasn't sure if you would be able to hear me," Naruto responded with a sheepish grin, his red-slitted eyes twinkling as he finally saw the younger princess for the first time. She was quite beautiful already, but clearly with more time she would grow just as beautiful as her mother, if not possible more so. A gentle face that was similar to that of a white mask, gorgeous eyes shadowed light purple eyeshadow that only enhanced her long lashes. Even if this was their first meeting, Naruto could clearly see she had her mother's eyes. Her shaggy gray hair feather, held back by a black beanie hat with a pale yellow tiara design, seems like she wasn't much for jewelry from what he could spot. The avian demon grunted as she leaned against the doorway. "Well, I heard you." Naruto smiled as he crossed his arms, explaining to the princess why he was there. "I'm not sure if your father informed you, but I'm here to protect your mother and yourself while you two go out." Octavia rolled her eyes, begging to shut her door as she said, "Sigh, look, I don't really want to go anywhere, and I doubt my mother wants to spend time with me." "Are you sure?" Naruto's odd question stopped the avian demon from shutting the door. Her eyes stared at her fellow Hell resident with confused eyes. "What? Are you sure Princess Stella doesn't want to spend time with you? Did she tell you that?" The whiskered blonde asked with a tilt of his head and a quirk of his brow, but still never losing his playful smile. "Well, no, but I assume." Octavia found herself interrupted by Naruto, the whiskered demon, saying, "Ah, you assume she doesn't. Why don't you ask her?" Seeing the youngest Goichia princess wasn't quite convinced by his words, he tried to sway her with a point in her favor, if only to prove me wrong. Octavia couldn't stop her scoff from escaping her beak even if she wanted to, staring at the sinner in disbelief before shaking her head with another sigh. If it would get him to leave, then she will go along with it. It will also just prove what she thought about her mother anyway. So with great reluctance, Octavia left her room, following the assassin who managed to actually convince her to leave. Her pink eyes gazed at his back, wondering who exactly her father hired to protect her mother and herself. Back with Princess Stella, the older Goichia princess paid the whiskered sinner no mind as he left. She was sure he would find her daughter's room, giving her a request which would be ignored by Octavia, then most likely to be told to go away. Just like when Stella herself would go to spend time with her. The avian demon sighed as she sipped tea. It was always the same, but then again, the older princess hadn't really tried to spend more time with Octavia until recently. For years, she had tried to teach the rebellious teen on how to be a lady. Be proper, so perhaps they would have things to bond over, have afternoon tea sessions together, trying delicious cakes and dessert, going shopping, but it wasn't until recently that she found out that the younger princess didn't want to do any of that, or at least, she didn't want to do any of that with her. She had found out how her daughter felt about her in a fight. If Stella was honest, it was her fault. She was enraged at Stella's once again, but the man wasn't in sight, and unfortunately, her daughter was. Stella had made a passing comment about the music Octavia listened to. Octavia said something snide in return, and it had escalated terribly from there. Now, Octavia wouldn't so much as look at her, let alone say a word. It broke her heart. She loved her daughter, truly she did, and she wanted to apologize, but she knew a simple sorry wouldn't be good enough. That's why she was hoping to take Octavia out to the Pride Ring and show her daughter she was truly sincere. More than willing to do whatever she wanted. But it's probably too late, isn't it? She hates you, just like how you hate your mother. A nasty voice whispered in her subconscious, causing the princess to gaze out one of the many large windows with a longing expression. So deep in her thoughts, she didn't hear Octavia's music get switched off, nor did she notice the two demons had joined her in the room until Naruto had cleared his throat, breaking her from her depressing thoughts. Stella felt a rush of excitement at seeing Octavia out of her room. In her excited state had left her seat in a rather unladylike manner, stopping before her daughter with a nervous smile. "Ah, Octavia, I was hoping to see you." The owlet blinked. She had never seen her mother this way. So, out of sorts and hoping to see her? Well, this was certainly new. "Mother, I'm sure you probably don't want to." Octavia looked over to Naruto, who gave her a nod and a not-so-subtle thumbs up, but it did the trick. With newfound courage, she asked Stella, "Would you want to spend some time together?" "I mean you don't." "Absolutely, dear. Let me just grab my bag and we'll go." Stella left quickly, but in a much more dignified manner. The confused Octavia turned to face the amused assassin, rolling her eyes at his knowing look. Don't you dare say it. I told you so. As if Naruto could sense her negative emotions, he decided in a bold act to lightly touch her shoulder, his chakra like a warm hug that soothed all her negative emotions. Octavia took a deep breath, closing her eyes before turning to the whiskered demon with intrigue, as he removed his hand. I've never seen that type of magic before. Especially from a sinner. Naruto rubbed at his neck as he chuckled sheepishly. Sorry, when my wife gets stressed, that's how I can get her to calm down. I found out the hard way my chakra is like catnip to imps. Octavia found herself frowning in slight disappointment, as she was only now noticing the golden band on his ring finger. I didn't know people like you got married in your line of work. Stella had come back to the room with what appeared to be a rather expensive purse. While anyone else would have thought her statement rude, Naruto just grinned as he thought of his Millie. Well, it's probably not recommended, but she was the first person I met when I came to this place. She was kind enough to take me home and introduce me to her family. The whiskered blonde seemed to get lost in his words, gaining a bit of a goofy grin as he thought about his wife, a slight reddish hue gracing his face as his crimson eyes sparkled in admiration for his wife. I'm very lucky. Stella could practically feel the love for his wife. It was almost suffocating, but in doing so brought forth a question. What did this woman look to have this man love her so much? Was she one of the high-class sinners? Perhaps even a demon or one of those cannibals? How scandalous. Stella looked away from the phone back to Naruto's smiling face and felt the writhing hot envy of what another had subsided. His wife, Millie, didn't deserve her hate no more than the man who was going to protect her daughter and herself. She seems very nice. Octavia raised a brow at her mother's rather polite response, but considering how strange everything else was to her today, she didn't really question it. She is. So where do you princesses want to go? Naruto asked, reaching into chest pocket, flipping open his sunglasses, then placing them on as he gave both mother and daughter a grin. Octavia and myself need new dresses for the upcoming gala. After that we can do whatever you like, dear. Stella said the last part to her daughter, once again surprising the younger princess. Oh, maybe a music shop or something? Octavia was waiting for her mother to deny her request, but instead found the older demon looping their arms together and leading her towards their personal limo, one of the servants rushing to be their personal driver for the day. Whatever you want. Octavia once again found herself throwing a confused look at her mother before turning her head in the direction of their bodyguard. He just had a lazy smile, shrugging his shoulders as he kept pace. The troubled teen sighed, but still a small smile managed to spread. Perhaps today wouldn't be so bad. Pentagram City. What do you think about this, Octavia? Stella asked as she held out a luxurious white and black dress. There was nothing wrong with it. Actually, it was quite beautiful, but it didn't suit Octavia. If anything, it was perfect for her mother. It seems nice. Stella frowned, looking down at her dress with a sigh, placing it on the pile and moving to select another when their whisked bodyguard called out to her. Princess, if I may? Perhaps Princess Octavia could take a look? While you rest, sort through the dresses you already picked out. Stella mulled over the request, before looking towards her daughter, seeing her actually look intrigued by the idea. Yes, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Octavia, I want you to pick your own dress and try it on. Really? Octavia asked once again, allowing a rare smile to slip forward. Stella practically melted at her daughter's smile. Of course, dear. I suppose you don't need your mother picking your dresses for you anymore. Stella muttered as she took a seat next to Naruto, looking through the dresses she picked for her daughter and sighing as she looked down at her folded hands, waiting for Octavia. The whiskered blonde glanced at his client's wife, then the dress she had picked out. He cleared his throat as he pointed with a clawed nail. That's a nice dress. Stella raised a brow, following his point to the pile of dresses, the black and white one. It's really pretty. Oh, thank you? Stella said, surprised. Stola's never complimented on her dresses. Hell, he never took notice. It was nice to hear, even if it was from her bodyguard. Are you gonna try it on? Naruto asked, sitting straight as he disarmed the taller demon with a smile. Well, I picked it for Octavia. Stella tried to rebuff. Even if she really liked the dress, she thought it was perfect for Octavia and she didn't even consider it for herself. Well, perhaps a little. That doesn't mean you can't try it on. You've picked over 100 dresses for the princess, but you haven't picked a single one for yourself. Put it on. The older princess of the Uchiha family once again found herself surprised by the man protecting her, A scoff that was mixed with what sounded like a chuckle escaped as she said, "You're quite forward for a bodyguard. It's the Uzumaki way, ma'am." Naruto replied with a wink, before pushing his sunglasses up, missing Stella rolling her eyes but smiling nonetheless. "So it seems. May I ask? What was it you were doing before you followed Octavia and myself?" Naruto scratched his whiskered cheek, a mischievous tone in his voice as he replied, "Just scouting the area." Earlier, Naruto waited by the limo, watching as the princesses walked ahead at his request. He rolled his shoulders before putting his hands in a familiar cross sign, using his signature technique to summon 3 clones. Poof, poof, poof! Naruto gazed at his clones like a general staring down his soldiers. These clones were different, for whatever reason gaining a consciousness and a personality of their own when they were summoned. It just seemed they always went for a gangster or an assassin from the whiskered blonde's favorite movies. Hey, he couldn't help it. Even in his past life he was a movie fanatic. Next to him was another clone with a slight difference in appearance, his eyes more sorrowful, breathtaking even. The way he carried himself, he stood straighter, his shoulders squared. He reeked of danger, and he was ready to kill. This was John Wick, or rather J.W. Naruto for short. Alright, you 3 know the deal. Take out any and all threats. Dispel yourself when you're done. Naruto ordered strictly before leaving to join the princesses, faintly hearing the muttering of his clones. "Alright man, consider it done. So we keep score on this one then?" Tangerine Naruto asked as he turned to his fellow clones with a smirk, "Or are we just going to assume I'm gonna win again? You did not win the last count." Mr. Blonde Naruto drawled out as he got off his position on limo, giving the more suave clone a pointed glare. "Right, see, there you go being wrong again, mate," the mustache-wearing Naruto said as he squared up against his fellow clone. "Do you two think it's possible to not antagonize one another until we're done?" J.W. Naruto asked with a roll of his eyes as he glared at his fellow doppelgangers. "TCH, let's get to it." And with that, he left the 2 other clones to their own devices. "Prepare to lose once again, you psychopath." Tangerine Naruto muttered with a smirk and nod as he broke away. His victory was already assured in his devious crimson eyes. The blonde assassin was currently on his phone, smiling at the pic Loona sent. She was staring at the camera with a bored look. Blitzo was in the background yelling at Moxie like usual, and what appeared to be a dead child. Oh well, and how could he forget his Millie photobombing while flipping off the camera? Naruto chuckled as he hearted and saved the pic before tucking his phone away. Waiting for either princess to show. He didn't need to wait any longer as Stella walked forward, the dress she picked out clinging to her form in the most fitting of ways. She looked quite stunning, and if her smile was any indication, she loved the dress. "You look amazing, princess. Prince Stolas is a very lucky man. If you were my wife and I caught you in that dress." Stella, unprepared for the flattery and how flirtatious it sounded, found her face heating up even underneath all her feathers. It's been some time since a man, her husband included, complimented her looks without it being for political gain or perhaps just to butter her up. No, Naruto was honest and sincere. It was because of his sincerity that she tolerated his light flirting, even if a part of her deep down was loving the attention. "How do I look?" The 2 turned to see Octavia walking forward shyly in an absolutely stunning dress that was just her. It was a dark blue, almost black, and seemed to have constantly moving stars, planets, nebulas, galaxies. It was mesmerizing as it shifted along with the young owlet's graceful movements. Naruto gave the younger princess a thumbs up, grinning as Stella rushed to her daughter's side and holding her hands. "Oh, Octavia, you simply look marvelous." "Oh, thanks, Mum. You look nice as well." Octavia awkwardly complimented her mother back, finding herself slightly amused at the way she lit up from the compliment. "Oh, thank you, dear. I do look quite nice, don't I?" Stella muttered as she admired herself in the mirror for a moment before taking her daughter's hand and dragging her for once non-reluctant daughter. "Come, darling, we'll pay for these and then go where you want to go." Naruto watched them walk together with a soft smile. It didn't take a psychic or even the smartest demon in hell to see that they had a fractured relationship, but it was clear Stella was trying her best to mend it and offer a hand or wing to her daughter. It was clear they had a bit to go before they were as close as they used to be, but Stella was trying, and that's got to count for something. At least it did in Naruto's eyes. The whiskered sinner gave a yawn as he stretched his muscles. These chairs weren't made for comfort at all. As he rolled his stiff neck, he couldn't help but wonder what his clones were up to. With the clones, J.W. Naruto was the far more skilled of his clone brethren. He proved his proficiency by killing every imp and sinner that was in his way. The firing of his gun was constant, every shot aiming for the head. They always hit their mark. Even when J.W. Naruto had to reload, he was never in danger. He took a stray imp with a knife by the horns, using it to twist his head until there was a loud snap before throwing his carcass at his comrades. Kicking the fallen knife into his hands, the clone hacked and slashed anyone that was bold enough to get close. The sound of guns cooking was all the alert he needed to use a larger and bulkier sinner as a meat shield, allowing him to take the bulk of the fire, blood spewing from his hulking form like a decorative fountain before stabbing the knife into the back of his skull, confirming the kill. A mixture of imps and sinners, a group of 6 armed to the teeth. Heavy artillery was pointed dead at J.W. Naruto, but he didn't seem fazed at all. Rather, he was confused why they would choose to stand in a large group under a barely held together billboard that looked kind of familiar. Oh god damn it. That was the one Blitzo blew all their money on. It really was an eyesore, and if he was honest, no one would really miss it. They all turned around just in time to see the fallen contraption, in that little time making peace with their demons, before being crushed like paste, leaving a large red stain on the pavement. Bang! The clone moved his head to the side, a bullet soaring past his head and hitting a silently approaching imp. Crimson eyes rolled in annoyance as Naruto put a new clip in his gun, and it seemed like his work was far from done. That suited him just fine. As he killed an animal-themed sinner, he wondered how his brothers were doing, with Mr. Blonde Naruto, while J.W. Naruto was hard at work. Our current clone was not. That wasn't to say he was doing nothing. He did rack up a decent number of kills, but it seemed he wanted to take time with this one in particular. A sinner was tied to a chair, his red skin bruised and cut, possibly from being beaten and slapped around by Mr. Blonde Naruto. His black hair caked with sweat and sticking to his face as he pitifully glared at the clone who was finishing a tasty beverage, grinning as he softly sipped on the straw. The sinner wouldn't meet his eye, cringing from the noise the now empty cup made. Flinching as Mr. Blonde dropped a piece of plastic, walking forward while reaching into one of his pockets. You know, it's not often I get to be free. I gotta cherish life while I get to, you know? Live it to the fullest. So I'm gonna have a little fun before I get back to work. Mr. Blonde pulled 2 items from his pocket. First his phone and what appeared to be the handle to a device. Now, have you seen the movie Reservoir Dogs? No. The sinner managed to stutter out, shivering at the clone's excited smile. The sinner screamed as Mr. Blonde carved open his face. The razor was soon stained with his blood as the sinister clone cut from brow to jaw, stepping back to admire his work with a chuckle. Not so pretty anymore. Heh, the sinner screamed. He was once comparable to that of an incubus. On Earth he was never much one to look at, but here? He was one of the gorgeous people, or rather he used to be. Ag. The clone was successful in removing the sinner's ear, grinning as he withered in agony on his chair, screaming profanities and promises of death at the top of his lungs. Can you hear me? Hello? Is this thing on? The clone asked as he spoke into the severed ear, before tossing it aside and wiping his bloody hand on his victim's own clothing. You evil cunt, Mr. Blonde snickered as he walked to a canister filled with gasoline. That's ironic. We were both sent down here for a reason, and you're a killer just like me, and yet I'm more evil than you. I don't enjoy killing like you. The once beautiful sinner managed to mutter out, glaring pitifully at the blonde clone. Is that right? The sinner went to respond but got a mouthful of gasoline for his trouble. The front of his clothes were soaked, his injuries burned, and he couldn't seem to breathe without coughing. Mr. Blonde watched all this with a smile. Well, I guess you are right. I am going to enjoy this. Wait, please. I didn't even want to target the princesses. It wasn't my idea. HM. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a pack of cigarettes before pulling one out and putting the butt to his lips. He lit the cigarette with an elemental fire he conjured on the tip of his thumb, his chakra infusing with the smoke, embers, and tobacco. Come on, man, let's cut a deal. I'll take you to the guys who planned. Mr. Blonde was quick to interrupt him, shaking his head as he said that won't be necessary. See, knowing my associates, I'm sure they know everything they need to know. They're probably at your hideout as we speak, killing everyone. No, Mr. Blonde hummed the rest of Stuck in the Middle with You to himself, stopping to mutter, man, I'm probably so far behind them now. I suppose I should take this a little more seriously. With Tangerine Naruto, Tangerine proficiency in killing was almost comparable to that of art. Blood splattered along walls as well as decorated the floor in interesting patterns. The blood of imp and sinner alike merged. The bodies left in the wake of his killing were large. Yet it didn't seem to faze the mustached clone, simply throwing aside his empty gun to slip on his knuckle dusters. An unlucky sinner leapt at the clone from behind, hoping to catch him off guard. He received a punch for his troubles. The force of the blow was so strong that it snapped the demon's neck by forcing his head to face the wrong direction, his neck a twisted mess. Tangerine was doing well to keep count of his impressive score, bludgeoning anyone that got too close. The mustache-wearing clone sighed as he looked down at soaked hands, the blood of his enemies dripping from his fingertips to cold ground below. It remained of his best friend back home. The thought of said Uchiha made the clone shake his head with a scoff pretentious. Although, he would probably look way cooler with a katana than Sasuke ever did, and it probably wouldn't hurt just to give it a try. Tangerine picked up the fine-crafted blade from its stand, twirling the blade with a roll of his wrist, smirking as the fine metal glinted in the light, begging to be used. Resting the flat edge of the katana on his shoulder, he whistled as he stepped out of the warehouse, raising a brow at the over 20 men with heavy artillery, aiming said weapons at him. They fired immediately, not hesitating to end what they considered a monster come to life. Tangerine ran up the building, his mustache-covered lips pulling back into a smirk as he kicked off the building, aiming his katana downwards, impaling the head of an animalistic-looking sinner, seemingly inheriting the form of a lion. Springboarding off his shoulders, the deadly clone decapitated 2 more sinners and an imp. Moving on to the next group, he continued to be a whirlwind of death, dicing and slicing his enemies until the ground became a pound of blood, yet not a single speck of it was on Tangerine bar the soles of his shoes. There was only one left, staring with wide horrified eyes at this sinner, no, this monster that just butchered his comrades like docile lambs. He wouldn't dare call it a fight. A fight implied there was a chance of victory, but there was no to be found victory here. Just meaningless death. As the clone stalked forward, the last sinner of the group brought his gun to his temple, his finger curling around the trigger. His eyes closed in a sort of relief, glad his torment was going to come to an end. Bang! Tangerine grinned as he racked the total count to 50. A satisfying score, some might say. Yet the professional killer had a thought to himself: it couldn't hurt to add more heads to the pile. So with that thought in mind, he rushed off from the blood-soaked area, keen to rejoin his brothers in the great slaughter. Music blared from the speakers around the shop, music spread far as the eyes could see. A mixture of things from the mortal realm and those who died and found themselves acquiring a new home here in hell. Naruto hummed as he looked through the records, the tapes, the CDs. Yes, they all still existed down here in hell. The blonde bodyguard glanced to his left, smiling at the sight of a clearly unsure but trying Stella following her excited daughter. The whiskered sinner knew that Octavia was hiding this side of her, and just needed a place where she felt comfortable enough to bring it out. Stella was more than happy to keep seeing this side of her only child, even if it meant she was a bit out of her element. Octavia was quick to find one of her favorite bands coming out of a pair of headphones with a long wire attached to a wall hanging with similar headphones hanging off a line of hooks. Above them was a wide TV screen playing the music video that went with the song. Octavia had a rare serene smile, closing her eyes as she felt at peace as she listened and felt the music. The lyrics moved her and related to her in ways others didn't. The youngest princess opened her eyes, taking off the headphones before offering them to her mother. Stella was hesitant, glancing at her daughter's hopeful face, then down at her hands. She took the device, made sure her hair was straight before placing the headphones over her own ears. Unsure at first, but as the older princess closed her eyes as she really listened to the song. Hearing the lyrics, feeling the emotion and soul the singer put into the song, the passion of their voice. Stella found the band outstanding. Octavia, my word. I had no idea they were so good. The way the melody just seemed to flesh out the lyrics. If you like that, then listen to this one. Octavia couldn't wait to lead her mother by the hand, waiting briefly for the track to switch and showing Stella another of her favorite songs. She watched eagerly, feeling slightly giddy as her mother once again closed her eyes, bopping her head and swinging her hips. Briefly she lost the shell of the princess of the Uchiha family, the spiteful and neglected wife who was angry at the world. No, for the first time Octavia and Naruto got to see the real Stella, or perhaps who she used to be before the dignified woman once again took place. Marvelous, just marvelous. You get your excellent taste from me, you know. Really? Oh yes. It may surprise you, dear, but back in my day, I used to listen music that my parents considered quite rebellious. I knew there was a rebel kicking in there. Naruto couldn't help but throw his 2 cents in with a cheesy grin that had both mother and daughter rolling her eyes but smiling nonetheless. Who did you used to listen to? It was a phase, dear, Stella confessed before lightly laughing with her daughter. For the first time in a long time happy. The trio didn't stay long in the music store, the princess collecting the few things that caught their eyes before heading outside, thanking Naruto for holding the door open for them. The incoming rain of metal was fast, but Naruto was faster, as he created a single clone, leaving himself and Stella, scoping Octavia in a princess carry and leaping high in the air away from the oncoming hail of death. Knowing there was no time to move Stella away from the bullets, the whiskered sinner reached out for the stunned princess. He pulled her close, holding her protectively as he swung their bodies around until his back was facing them, crouching and bringing Stella down with him. Naruto took everything they had but showed no signs of discomfort. All that mattered to him at this moment was keeping Stella safe. Said princess had eyes closed as she held on to Naruto for dear life, the gunfire sounding like a never-ending hellstorm, and yet she managed to open her eyes just as the gunfire stopped. Staring with wide eyes as the whiskered sinner slowly raised from his crouched position over her, brushing off his now ruined jacket and shirt with his hands. Crumbled and broken bullets rained to the floor. Naruto slowly turned, showing a frown on his whiskered face, red eyes glowing as he menacingly walked forward. His clawed hands were balled up into fists. On his 6th step forward he disappeared in a burst of speed, appearing in front of the horned sinner that spoke and destroying his head with a single punch. The other sinners along with Stella and Octavia could only stare in shock and awe at his display of raw strength. Naruto wasn't done as he kicked the second largest sinner into his smaller friend, sending them both into a building, debris and large pieces of wall falling and crushing them on the spot. The last remaining 2 sinners could only stare in horror before making the agreed decision to flee, hoping that Naruto wouldn't be able to catch up to them. How wrong they were. Neither managed so much as a final scream before they died, joining their comrades in the abyss as the whiskered blonde finished his job and made his way to the princesses, arriving just in time to see his clone reunite mother and daughter before dispelling Mom/Octavia. Naruto smiled briefly at the sight of them checking each other over before turning their attention to the approaching sinner. Princess Stella, Octavia, are you both alright? Stella was the first one to speak, nodding as she held her daughter close. Yes, we're alright, but I believe it is time we go home. I couldn't agree more. Let's get you ladies home. Naruto led the owlets back to the limo before the driver speedily took them home. Uchiha Mansion. Naruto was standing outside the mansion door, giving both Stella and Octavia a final smile. Looks like you girls are finally back home and safe. Sorry what happened had to ruin a nice day for you too. Not at all. You did your duty and protected myself and my daughter. I am forever grateful for that. Stella turned to her daughter, gently rubbing her back as she suggested to her daughter to go inside. Octavia, why don't you head up, dear? I'll be up in a minute. Naruto gave a wave before turning his attention back to Stella, finding her gaze far from the cold but curious when he first met her. Instead, the frost seemed to have melted away and been replaced with something else. Thank you, Naruto. I won't forget what you did for me and my daughter today. If Naruto was surprised by the princess using his first name, he didn't show it. His smile simply shifted into a familiar grin as he scratched the back of his blonde locks. I was simply doing my job, princess. Stella is just fine, Naruto. Stella gave Naruto a nod and a smile of her own before turning and walking into her home. I'm sure we will be acquiring your services once again. I look forward to it. As do I. The door closed gently, just leaving Naruto to turn and make his own way back to I.M.P. After a rather long but still fairly pleasant day, Naruto walked into reception to find Loona not at her desk. Not unusual, but still left him raising a brow until he heard the commotion coming from the meeting room. He leaned against the door, arms crossed as he watched Blitzo harass Moxie. Loona texted on her phone and his wife watching it all with amusement. Seems like nothing changed while he was gone. Millie was the first to spot him, giving an excited shout as she leapt across the room, tackling him as she papered his face in kisses. I missed you too, honey. Mwah, glad to have you back, baby. Oh, what happened to your clothes? Millie asked after giving Naruto a final kiss on the lips. Just work. Naruto replied with a shrug before turning his attention to his long-horned boss, asking, Hey Blitz, you still need me? Blitzo shook his head, business was slow for the rest of the day, so no, he wouldn't be meeting his favorite couple for the rest of the afternoon. No, you're done for the day. I hate to say it, but good job, thanks. I said good, not great. More room for improvement, MMHM. Naruto responded with a roll of his eyes as he turned his attention to his fellow coworkers, himself and Millie giving a wave as he did. See ya, Loona, Mox. Bye, Naruto. Loona cursed herself in her head for sounding so eager, as he tried to act casual. Moxie gave a wave of his own before sighing as the couple left, leaving him on his lonesome to deal with both Blitzo and Loona. Satan help him. Naruto, now outside but still carrying his short-stack wife, glanced towards her as he asked, so, are you ready to go home? Millie gave a saucy grin as she leaned on her husband's strong shoulder, whispering sensuously into his ear. Get us there quick. Mama's all penned up and she's hungry. Naruto laughed as he leapt off the ground in a burst of speed, planning to enjoy the rest of the afternoon and night with his wife to the fullest. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comment section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.